Civilization is a mirror of our consciousness. An enlightened civilization is aware of our shared eternity. An enlightened civilization is aware of ourselves as the one infinite creator expressing itself as these dreamed creation designs. This is just one combination. This is just one expression. How many possibilities are there of songs that a symphony can play? This is one of those songs that we are playing as the eternal symphony. An enlightened civilization has that recognition, and it becomes a clean mirror that refracts the source light purely, without any distortions. When the mirror, the jewel that is being refracted through, is dirty, that's where distortions happen. That's when the unique expressions, the artists in the symphony, play out of tune. That's when planetary ecological disaster happens. That's when self-dealing and ego and greed and conspicuous consumption and seeking happiness and peace externally happen. It all has to do with how cleanly that mirror is, how pure that mirror is versus how dirty it is and how distorted it is. And you can analyze that through our technology. At a civilizational level, what level of enlightenment is our technology? You have all of the double-edgedness in all of the tech that we make. You make an incredible democratization in some technology, like these incredible computers and smartphones, and they're being used both in great ways to maximize our potential and also in very destructive ways simultaneously. So at a level of consciousness, the more enlightened we become, the more that the technology becomes architected to maximize prosperity. Very similar with our governments. You look at our governments today, it's very much like these institutions. They look like they are hundreds of years old. They look like they're there to serve as a kleptocracy for just the select few elites, rather than to serve the maximization of the potential of everybody that's a part of that country in that government. Also, our social contracts, very similarly, when you have a relationship with your physician as a patient, why is your physician getting the incentives from the pharmaceutical industry, like the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma, to prescribe you opiates, rather than having the incredible benefits of so many of the entheogens that are currently illegal? The natural secretions of the planet are illegal. Meanwhile, what's synthetically being made inside of a lab to make you a dodo bird that becomes extinct, to make you gluttonous, to make you have heart disease and high blood pressure and high blood sugar and cancer, is legal. But while the planetary secretions of entheogens that unleash God within are illegal. How enlightened is our civilization when we see these types of social contract architectures? The physician should have a tokenomic, inclusive equity stake in the life outcome of their patient. That would eradicate any of the perverse incentives of the pharmaceutical industry getting involved. Or at an ecological level, look at the planetary social fabric. How well do we recognize our depth of interconnectedness? 20,000 times per day, we take an inhalation of oxygen that comes directly from the photosynthesis of phytoplankton and trees. And yet you wonder how aware we are of that as we continue creating the clear lack of harmony with our environment. Ecologically speaking, this is our home. We are secreted and maintained by the planet. And so to be stupid enough to not recognize that is a level of consciousness that is so dim, this so unenlightened, so endarkened, that of course we're going to have all of these mirrored problems that are happening at our civilizational level. Look at it at a geopolitical level. In the sense of the left versus right politically in the United States, or even at the level of geopolitically with China and the US, or Russia, Saudi Arabia, etc., it just looks like a bunch of monkeys that are throwing feces at each other's faces. None of it looks like a conversation around how to maximize planetary enlightenment, how to maximize human potential across the board for everybody. It's a big competition to self-deal as much as you can for yourselves and your own countries. Meanwhile, everybody else, they're not important to me. And even then, when you get into your own country, then you say, well, it's actually about my family, and it's not about any of the other families. You see, the level of endarkenment is exactly the level of civilizational architectures, social contracts, governments, institutions, technology, ecological relations, geopolitical relations. The more endarkened you are, the more dirty the mirror is, the more cancerous and pathological everything downstream is, versus the more enlightened we are, the more clear our channel is, the more clean and pure our mirror is, and the more harmonic and the more prosperous our downstream architectures are. It's that simple. It has everything to do with consciousness. You can literally think about it at a level of frequency and vibration. You have this low level of frequency and vibration around in darkened souls. Those are very egoic. There's a lot of noise. It's like the mass media. It's like gluttony. It's like polarization. Very dirty mirror. And then there's this very subtle, higher frequency vibration that exists, which is the signal in the noise. And you have to parse and you have to find that signal and fill your essence, your spirit, your neural real estate with that on a moment-to-moment basis to become more enlightened and to then vortex up other people with you. And that's what God/infinity realization and actualization is. That's what a clean mirror is. You purify and you purify yourself away from these animalistic behaviors and tendencies that are egoic and finite and contracted, and you clean and purify that mirror more and more towards one infinite creator, to recognize that the pupil is shared and eternal among us, and that the iris is our unique expression of the infinite, our unique coloration, and that this is just one creation design that is dreamed, that we are experiencing as eternal awareness. And so you have to do your best to find those pockets of signal in the insanity of the noise and to really hone in on that signal and then vortex up more and more people towards that enlightened signal. There's been a lot of conversations in the media around aliens, and it's been really exciting because I've been studying this for 5+ years, and it's like finally people are catching up in a respect, especially around these topics. First of all is the zoo hypothesis. You have to think about all of this at a very macro level. The zoo hypothesis is simply put something like the other civilizations that exist that are advanced in the cosmos, they will not touch this civilization here on this rock, on this Earth orbiting the star, because it is very much like the naturalistic evolutionary capacities and tendencies, like a big social experiment, like a petri dish that is unfolding. And that's also very similar to the Prime Directive, which comes from Star Trek, which says that these massive star fleets of starships that are going around in the cosmos of these advanced civilizations, their prime directive is to not influence the evolution of the civilization. Now, there might be tiny bits of evolution that is affected by the advanced civilizations in the sense of when you look back at things like around 1945, when the nuclear weapons are created and dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, simultaneously Albert Hofmann synthesizes LSD, and that gets unleashed into the civilization, right? So you might wonder that if there are those tiny vibrational influences that come and assist in the ascension and the enlightenment. And similarly, in 2008, when you have the subprime mortgage crisis hit and the recession hit, you have literally 6 weeks after Lehman Brothers collapses, you have Satoshi Nakamoto publish the Bitcoin white paper, which we still don't know who that is, if it is potentially something that is off-world that comes and affects this, which is very beautiful. Also thinking about aliens and this conversation of consciousness around the Kardashev scale. The more that a civilization advances on the Kardashev scale from being a type 1 civilization, where we as a planet are still at a 0.7, a type 1 civilization is one that knows how to ecologically, harmonically leverage the resources energetically of its own rock. We still don't know how to do that because we're creating destructive ecology while we extract for energetic purposes. A type 2 civilization on a Kardashev scale knows how to extract the resources from their host star. And a type 3 civilization knows how to extract the resources from all of the stars in their galaxy. Type 4 civilization knows how to extract the energy from at the universal level, and a type 5 civilization, the Omega civilization, knows how to do things like create more universes, which is ultimately what is at our Godhead. In the transcension hypothesis as well, we both go inward into the metaverse technology, the synthesis of artificial general intelligence, indistinguishable virtual realities, bio and neurotechnology, as well as we go outward at the same time into the cosmos in that Star Trekian style future. Simultaneously, we go both in and out. That is ultimately what is at our Godhead, is the cyclic cosmology, like Sir Roger Penrose won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2020, talking about that cyclic cosmology, or looking at it from the perspective of what the perennial wisdoms are across the spiritual traditions. It's the Ouroboros, which is the snake eating its own tail. So more and more of these dreamed creation designs that we eternally will be experiencing. We are infinity experiencing these dreamed creation designs. That shared pupil and then the unique coloration of the iris. And as we birth out of egoic adolescence, to be able to play with others in this cosmic landscape. Think about that. When a civilization becomes enlightened, when all 8 billion of us figure out how to harmonically maximize human potential, to recognize that the other is actually the self, is actually a unique expression of the same infinity, then you recognize, let's maximize human potential. Everybody's a unique creative expression, but of the same infinite. So what we'll do is then become so advanced, we'll break out of our egoic, contracted, finite, separate energy, and then we will attract more of the cosmic levels of intelligence to play with us. Very simple. And this also goes with these beautiful quotes that many of us have heard. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Very similar to show me the incentives, I'll show you the future, which is very similar to show me your consciousness, I'll show you your future, and show me civilization's consciousness, I'll show you civilization's future. It all has to do with the levels of consciousness. Consciousness is the fundamental unit that is then reflected in our social fabric. The more egoic of a level of consciousness you have, the more you'll have disastrous relationships with your family, your friends, your community, and the world. The more enlightened your level of consciousness is, the more you recognize that the shared infinitude and eternity of our nature, and therefore the more harmonic your relationships are with your friends, your families, your coworkers, your community, and the world. It's that simple. Stop surrounding yourself with egoic friends, cut it off. Go and begin surrounding yourself with more enlightened friends. Similarly with incentives, get away from perverse incentives and move towards the architecting of incentives that are around inclusive stakeholding, inclusive equity. And same thing with our consciousness. Hone in, dedicate yourself fully to enlightenment. Dedicate yourself fully to purifying and cleansing your mirror to become a better and better refracting agent of that source light, so that more and more your expression is less and less egoic and more of the recognition of that God realized state of the shared eternal one infinite creator expressing itself. And that's why one of the first things that I do all the time now is I ask about metaphysical truth. Not only a couple years ago, as I began going full time into recognizing what is our metaphysics, what is consciousness, what is the nature of reality, who are we, why are we here, where are we going? But beyond that is even asking every single person you interact with about their understanding of metaphysics. Gauging the person's level of consciousness right off the bat. That way you know where they're at. Are they at an egoic level of consciousness? Are they at a somewhat enlightened level of consciousness? Are they literally radiating peace and bliss? Where are they at? And that way you gain deep insight immediately into the relationship with them, rather than staying at the surface level, talking about the weather and talking about sports and talking about the news. Go deep right away. Do you know yourself as infinity? Right away, ask. Don't be scared. Don't let fear create hesitation. Practice the process over and over again of asking people that. Do you recognize yourself as infinity? Are you an expression of the infinite? Do you recognize our awareness as shared? Do you recognize that awareness as eternal? Do you recognize this as a dreamed creation design? How focused are you on planetary prosperity? Those are the questions. Eradicate the limiting beliefs that hold you back from God realization, from infinite realization. And then eradicate the limiting beliefs on the channeling of that realization outward, like Wu Wei, like Lao Tzu said, in an effortless butterfly effect outward. Recognize the optimizations that exist in the infinite actualization, in the God actualization process, where you can become better and better and more optimal at, for example, disseminating your memetics, becoming a better storyteller, having a higher digital quotient, knowing how to leverage the social platforms. And have the courage to actualize your fullest firework. The firework is very dim, the dirty ass mirror, versus the firework that's massive and explosive and brings so much peace and bliss to everybody. Have the courage to be that. That is your true nature, is the pure and clean mirror expression of infinity. That is your true nature. It is a very simple, veilless veil or gateless gate that must be pierced to recognize that as your true nature, as infinity. You are already in union with infinity, but the noisy mind prevents this insight. And that's why Patanjali 2,000 years ago said, yogas, chitta, vritti, nirodha, union with the infinite is simply quieting the waves, the fluctuations of consciousness. When you quiet the mind, it gives you profound insight into union with infinity. And then you bring that out and weave tantric path, the realization, sahaja samadhi, as Ramana Maharshi said, out into society. You weave those realizations. You maximize human potential by architecting out the protocols, the frameworks that bring abundance and prosperity and well-being to everybody, because you recognize our shared eternal being. You recognize that. We are the infinite expressing itself. The more that you recognize that, the more enlightened you become and the more enlightened civilization becomes. Civilization, all our technology, our governments, our ecological relationships, geopolitical relationships, our social contracts are all a mirror of our states of consciousness. Are we egoic or are we enlightened? It's as simple as that. Parse for the signal in all of the noise, all of the gluttony, all of the mass media propaganda and polarization and nonsense that's salt, oil, sugar, trying to keep you sedated. Try and parse for the signal of enlightenment, of piercing that veilless veil, of God realizing, infinite realizing, and then infinity actualizing, the bright-ass firework that you are. Clean, pure mirror, refracting the source light rather than the dirty jewel that is refracting egoic tendencies. It's really that simple. Civilization is a mirror of our consciousness. Recognize that and enlighten yourself. Seek becoming the one infinite creator, recognizing yourself as that. As Rumi said, we go from room to room looking for the diamond necklace that is already around our neck. That is what awareness is. Become aware of awareness itself and the eternal sharedness of that awareness. And that is your ticket. That is your key to recognize that the pupil itself is that, and the iris is the unique expression of that. We share the eternal pupil of infinity, and the unique expression is our iris. And when you get that, you elevate your consciousness to those levels, and you elevate civilizational architectures and prosperity to those levels. Thank you very much for tuning in. If the video brought you value, like the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. Also leave a comment below with your thoughts. Would love to hear from you. Share the video with other people that you feel that this would resonate with. Also, you can join the channel below, get cool exclusive perks. And also, every single one of those revenue dollars goes to the actualization of all of our projects. And love you tons. Thank you so much for tuning in. Adore you. And clean the mirror, purify the mirror, recognize yourself as the one infinite creator, and civilization architectures will ascend with your enlightenment. Adore you. Thank you.